Welcome to Off the Court, a show dedicated to making you the best version of yourself as a player and as a person. I'm Coach Jack, CEO and owner of Close the Gate Hoops. If you're trying to take your life and game to the next level, this is the podcast for you. Let's get it. What up, gatekeepers? Back at you with another episode of Off the Court. Today, we actually have an awesome topic that was, the idea was sparked from me. I had John JQ Basketball Training on for an interview. Aaron, he has like 100,000 followers on Instagram right now. But I asked him the question of what's the biggest piece of life advice that you'd want to give to the people listening right now, since, you know, we focus on the youth and how we can make them better people. But he said detaching from others' opinions. And that kind of made a spiral in my head. And I realized that like almost everything in basketball goes back to our thinking of other people's opinions, right? So, and I've been observing myself even when I practice on Plapo right now. And when I shoot the ball, what I'm actually thinking about when it's made or missed. And it's always based off what other people are thinking, right? And that can go from positive aspects as well. Like when you're super hot, you're in your head thinking about how everyone's thinking about how you cannot miss, right? It's not actually about what's happening. It's about what other people are viewing the situation as. That's why it's extremely important that we learn how to detach from others' people's opinions, no matter if it's a positive outcome or a negative outcome. And this is so much easier said than done. And I think this is one of the hardest things you could possibly master, because everybody still does this. And even us talking about it, right? We've talked about this before. Even though we're telling you this, it doesn't mean we're really good at it either. We're going to go over in this podcast what we think the best steps are to take in terms of detaching from other people's opinions. Because like when John was talking on the podcast, he was kind of like, I really don't know how to help people do that. It kind of just happens. But the first thing I'll put out there, Aaron, and then we can kind of talk off each other from it, is that understanding that not caring is a feeling, right? So when you aren't caring about something, you think you're not doing anything emotionally, but that actually is a feeling. And a good example of this could be CTG's TikTok. So when CTG first started to blow up on TikTok, we had a ton of people in the comments, and we do on every video now. But when that initially first blew up and I saw everyone's comments, and there's always going to be haters and people behind the screen saying all this crap about you and the videos you're making, I took that criticism very hard, and every single little comment I wanted to respond to and say something back to them. And I always had something to say, right? So they kind of got in my head in terms of criticizing what we were posting on our videos. But over time, I've learned to not care about any of those comments. And I realized that not caring is a feeling, because I had to practice that over and over again. Because now we'll get like hundreds of comments. One of our videos has like 700 comments, and I can't even respond to them all, but some of them are going to be people hating on us, right? But I've gotten to the point where I literally don't care about that, and I had to practice that feeling. Another good example that could be girlfriends, right? In high school, when you have a girlfriend, that's kind of all you think about. And over time, say you break up, right after that initial breakup, you could still be caring about what they're doing or who they're talking to or where they are. But over time, that feeling of not caring, you practice it, and you get to the point years later where you kind of forget about them. So understanding that not caring about other people's opinions is a practice, and it's an actual emotion. So that's the first thing I would say. Do you have anything to say about that, Aaron?
Yeah, this is something that's relevant in everybody's life, because people just naturally want others to like them, right? The reason I like this topic so much is because it's something that everybody deals with, right? And it's because everyone just naturally wants everybody to like them, and they don't like when people are mad at them. And that's something that sticks with everyone, especially in sports. I think is a great example, because I always used to do that too. I would be like, am I shooting too much? Am I not passing enough? Am I playing good defense? Do people think I'm bad at defense? Things like that, right? And I mean, the main problem with that, especially like directly correlating to basketball, is you're going to play worse because you're thinking about all these things. And we've talked about how important like not thinking while you're playing is, right? Just going out and you know, that's the main thing that people think about when they're playing, is what are other people thinking about, right? Especially when you got people watching you all the time and things like that. It's super easy to be like, I want them to think that I'm good. I want them to I don't want them to be talking bad about me,
Yeah, that's kind of crazy too, because when we tell people to not think, we're basically saying don't worry about other people's opinions, right? Because like in basketball, when you're thinking about your shot, it's stemming from you worrying about people knowing that you're missing a lot or not shooting well. You know what I mean? And it's kind of crazy that I'm just realizing all of this now, but I've realized this from myself this year playing at Platteville, and how I'm worried about what other people are thinking of me, even the coaches too. Like this applies to literally everyone in the same room as you.
Well, that's one of the exciting parts of the game too, is when fans are like, or you have like a little kid come up to you after the game and like want to fist bump you or something, or you have a
Mhm.
parent saying, "Hey man, you did really good," or a teacher, "Hey, you did awesome." That stuff is really cool. You like, it's nice to hear that kind of stuff, but then like, it goes both ways, because then if you're thinking about that stuff a lot, then you're constantly thinking, well, I hope they think that I did good. I hope that, stuff like that. Like, so it goes both ways. It's about finding a balance, like in everything.
I totally agree. And that's why I was going to say you still have to detach from those, even though those are awesome things that are happening.
Yeah.
Like, and what I mean by that is not attaching to the feeling that you had when that kid came up and gave you a fist bump and things like that. Because then you're going to attach to the feelings when you don't play well. Right.
Mhm.
So, and a great way to detach from this, and this applies directly to me as well, and some of the other CTG students that I've been talking to in high school that have been struggling with this, but your performances do not define you. Your process defines you. And
Mhm.
what that means basically is if you let your performance define you, which almost everybody does, that means that your worth and your value is based upon how you do in the basketball game as a basketball player. So if you play really, really well, yeah, you're super stoked up. You have the greatest feelings in the world. Um, and you're letting what you do be dictated by how you perform. And then
Mhm.
when you don't play well and you don't think you're playing up to your expectations or how much work you put in, things like that, then you're devastated and you're in a place in your life where you don't want to be when you started playing the game for the love of it in the first place.
Yeah.
So when
That's
we let our process define us, right? What this would mean basically, you're only focused on how to improve and continuing to do that. And the performances literally don't matter to you whatsoever. So you
mhm.
have to detach from positive and negative outcomes though. So when you play really well, you can't get super psyched up about that. And I know that sucks and that's not that fun, but it's going to stop you from playing worse because when you have bad performances, then you're attaching the feeling of you suck, you're not great, you put in so much work and you're not as good as you're supposed to be. You know what I
And
mean?
that's the hard part too, is because the games like are the easy part, right? Those are the things you look forward to, and the process. You're spending so much more time in doing that than you are in the games, and that's the hard thing about it. What's really important in this scenario is goals, because those goals. If you have your own goals, people will try to make goals for you. They try to be like, they should be doing this instead, right? They try to make goals for you. But if you have your own goals and you have self-respect, right, that's a huge thing too. Knowing what your worth is. Those goals, when you're achieving those goals in your own head, you're becoming successful, right? And it shouldn't matter what other people think your success should mean. Does that make sense?
Exactly. And I think it comes down to, and this scenario of performance do not define you and your process does directly correlates to me because your process is going to be applied to everything you do in life. That's not just basketball. And that's why I have a main focus of life as a part of CTG, because for most basketball stops at age what, 18?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have, if an average person lives to 80 years old, you have 62 more years of your life, right? That's not going to be related to your performance in basketball. So how you grew yourself and improved yourself through your basketball game, that's your process, right? And that has to be able to carry over into other parts of your life, right?
Which I think that has become so much harder nowadays. And we've grown up in the era of like social media, where that's the whole point of social media, is receiving feedback from people, right? You post
Mm-hmm.
something and you want, the whole goal is to get a bunch of likes and a bunch of comments and people saying nice things under your pictures. That if people don't get enough likes, they think it determines their self-worth, and that's so dumb. That's so
Mm-hmm.
shallow. And I think that has caused a huge problem with people caring about other people's opinions nowadays. Like that's such a, like, because you see it so much more now. People struggle with that so much more now, and people are more sensitive nowadays because of this. And like, it's like social media is like a huge factor in this. And I think limiting social media presence and like, or not, maybe not, like you can have social media, but just don't buy too much into it. It's like, it's not that important.
No, that you hit right on the spot. And that's why I think most people struggle with it so much today. And like even us too, right? We grew up in an age of social media, where you're basically ranked on how popular you are and things of that nature, how many likes you get, how many followers you have. But I think a good example too, I think CTG's TikTok is a good example of performance is not defining you and your process does. I think we started that like a year and a half ago, and we've been posting like twice a day, every day, to this point today. And if we were focused on performance is defining us when we first started it, we would have stopped or quit or a long, long time ago. Right.
Mhm.
But we were just focused on that process and the consistency of it and just giving good value to people and hoping some people take something away from it. We would not be where we're at today, which we have 87,000 followers now, which is absolutely crazy. But if we were focused on how we were doing a year and a half ago, we would have never gotten to where we are today.
And the other thing was, it was based on like what our goal was of the account, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the goal wasn't to gain a bunch of followers and try to, make ourselves popular. While we did want a bunch of followers, the reason was because we wanted to influence as many people as we could.
Yes.
And, like our goal was to just post things that can help people. And that, like, when there's a goal like that involved with social media, that can be a really good thing. But a lot of people like are trying to, it's like a game. They're trying to just get as many followers as possible, and that's their whole goal.
And
And that's causing more, self-doubt, and they're reading the comments that they get bad comments, and they're letting that eat at them. But that's just not what's important.
that you're so right. But you have to apply that same mindset. Like you said, our goal was to influence as many lives as possible. It wasn't for followers. It wasn't for how many likes we get. That has to be applied to your game. And that's why I think averages as a goal is not good for you. Right. And that's something we should definitely start talking more with our students, because when you're not meeting up to that expectation of the average that you had, again, you're attaching to the feeling of your performance, right? So we need to come up with a better way of someone coming up with a more substantial goal that actually gives you value through it. Man, that's a good thing to think about. Because even I remember in high school, I was always focused on how many I averaged, and that
Yeah.
was my goal as a player.
The other thing was the rankings that I would always be looking at, like of other
Uh-huh.
players. Like, why am I not on here? Like, I should be on
Mm-hmm.
here. I was so mad. And I was like, who cares? It's like one guy's making the rankings, maybe like a
Mm-hmm.
couple guys, and they probably have never even seen me play. So what was I so worried about? Like, and it's like, that doesn't matter. What matters is, how you can like help your team and how you're improving, and how it's all about you. It's not about what other people like, or how they're ranking you, comparing you to other players, right? Comparison is the main thing that kills people, that like, and creates self-doubt in themselves.
Comparison is the thief of joy. My dad used to say that all the time. Even the rankings, like we were so attached to what other people thought of us and thinking that that aspect gave us value.
Yeah.
And I think it always comes back to how you're influencing others. Like you said, do you make your team better? Are you making your teammates better? So I think that's probably the best way to detach from other people's opinions, when you actually focus on other people,
Yeah.
right? When you're not focused on yourself.
Hmm. And I have that written down too. It's like, you gotta hope, like, don't be like everyone else that's looking at you and saying bad things about you. Go practice like cheering for other people and hoping other people do well, because you're going to recognize how the words that, like, they don't matter, like when somebody's talking bad about you or whatever. Like, don't play into the problem, that you might be having.
And I think detaching from others people's opinions flows very well into, have you ever read the Four Agreements?
No, oh shoot, you were telling me about it maybe,
Yeah.
but I haven't read it.
We've had to have mentioned it at least once on this podcast, but that's Tom Brady's favorite book. And it basically gives like the four biggest principles to live your life by. And one of the principles is not to take anything personally. So what this means exactly is that people's words say more about themselves than they do to you, even if it's directly at you, like a complete insult that you can't shoot or something like that. Those words of them telling you that stems from their own insecurities. And you
Yep.
might have heard that before, But anytime anybody says anything to you, it's actually about themselves. Even if they're like describing you, like maybe stating a fact, how they're saying it and why they're saying it is stemming from themselves.
Mhm.
And so that's why literally everything someone does or says, or the actions that are made around you, you can't take it personally and think that that means who you are and that defines you. One thing too that we mentioned actually recently on a podcast that we've talked about, Aaron, is doing small little things to get outside your comfort zone that helps you detach from other people's opinions. So like a good example could be like if you're with your team, right? And your coach asks the whole team to put an input for something, right? And they're just looking for volunteers. And I had that happen recently, and I had like a drop in my heart of nervousness for literally no reason. And so I immediately raised my hand and said something. So like noticing those moments of when you're outside your comfort zone is when you should seize that moment and do it, right? Because that's going to help you not care and build that emotion of not caring of what other people think.
Mhm. I think that's so important. Like just doing something that you might think is weird, or you might think other people think they'll find it weird, but it's like like that's just gonna help you become comfortable being uncomfortable, and that's like
And I think the example we used, Aaron, one time was like if you're going into Starbucks or something and there's a bunch of people outside, you just lay down in the middle of the road on your
yeah.
back,
You
right?
read that in a book, didn't you? Or what
Uh-huh.
book was
I
that?
read that in a book, and it was like try and do 30 days in a row of something that makes you uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And one of the exercises that they did is that you would literally lay down with a bunch of people outside in the middle of the road. And
Yeah.
I'm sure for a couple seconds, everyone's looking and saying, what is this dude doing? He must be out of his mind. And then you realize, oh, I'm never going to see these people ever again in my entire life. So it does not matter.
Exactly. And the thing
Um,
is people are always so worried about themselves that they're not even paying attention to what you're doing.
exactly.
I always used to think that, like when I was in high school, I'd always be so worried about what I was gonna wear to school because I was like, I wanted to look good.
Mm-hmm.
But like the more and more I thought about it, I'm like, there's not one person that I went to school and I know what I could tell you what they're wearing. Like nobody is really paying attention to that. Like
Exactly, because the other people are doing the same thing as you. They're trying to figure
yeah.
out what to wear because they think people are looking at them. So that's a great point, Aaron. The last thing I want to add about trying to do things outside your comfort zone is, again, knowing what that feeling actually is. And the best way I can describe it is when you almost, your palms get a little sweaty, your heart kind of drops from nervousness, and you're just completely outside your comfort zone. You have to realize when you're in that moment and then seize it and say, instead of thinking, because when normal people get into that moment, they're like, all right, I have to find every way to get out of this situation
Yeah.
to avoid getting outside my comfort zone. When you have that feeling, you have to seize it and then do the opposite of what your brain is trying to do. Because scientifically, we're in fight or flight mode in
Mhm.
those uncomfortable situations. So you actually want to do the opposite of what your brain is trying to tell you to do.
Yeah. And our brain is always predicting the worst case scenario too.
Yeah, it's
So
it's ridiculous.
yeah, it's really like how bad could something like really turn out, You're thinking what is it? If you like go talk to a girl or something, that they're gonna just start screaming, calling you ugly and telling you to leave her alone. Like that's not what's gonna happen.
Mhm.
It can't be
And
that.
no, it's never as bad as it seems, and it's never as good as it seems. And that again goes to not attaching to performances and outcomes.
Mhm.
Sorry, Aaron, someone's calling me. All right. So to recap, gatekeepers on probably one of the most important basketball and life principles, not attaching to other people's opinions and being able to detach from them. The first thing I wrote down that we went over, that's one of the most important, is that performances do not define you. Your process does. Because when we attach to things that happen when we have good performances, like you said, someone coming up to give you a fist bumps, yes, that is an awesome moment. But if you attach to that feeling of how good it feels, then when you have bad moments, you're also going to attach to that. So then you're going to get into an even lower point. So it's never as good as it seems, and it's never as bad as it seems. And you kind of have to live by that principle. The second thing I wrote was to not take anything personally. Whatever someone is saying at you, even if they're stating an absolute fact about you, what it's stemming from is themselves and not you. And you cannot let anything someone else says define who you are, right? You define yourself. The third thing I wrote is that understanding that not caring is actually an emotion. And you have to practice the emotion of not caring to be able to detach from other people's opinions. And the examples we used were CTG's TikToks in the comments and girlfriends, right? Ex-girlfriends that you don't even think about anymore whatsoever. And originally when you first broke up, you might have been thinking about them, right? You built the emotion of not caring. The fourth thing I wrote that you can actually practice is doing small things outside your comfort zone, finding the moment and emotion where you feel uncomfortable, seizing that and doing the complete opposite of what your brain wants you to do. Like Aaron said, just laying down in the middle of the parking lot with a bunch of people out there, right? That's a good example of something that means nothing, and it really doesn't matter what other people say about you. And the fifth thing I wrote that kind of goes with not taking anything personally in performances is just not attaching to the positive and negative outcomes. Most importantly, the positives, right? Because we don't like to attach to negative outcomes, but the reason we attach to them in the first place is because we attach the positive outcomes. And I think that's important for people to understand. If you're ever sad about not playing well or up to your expectations, it's because you attach to the emotion of when you were playing well, which I think is the biggest thing. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that, Aaron?
Sounds good.
Awesome. You want to do a quick speed round? We haven't done that in a while.
Yep.
Okay. So we are recording this on January 3rd, 2022, which is absolutely insane. What was your favorite Christmas gift?
That was going to be my question.
Yeah.
I got, let's see, Packers win was big. That was a good one.
Did you go to the game?
No.
Oh, okay.
I just, the Packers winning was a great Christmas present for me. And then the other thing I really liked that I got was my grandparents got me this George Foreman grill.
Ooh.
And I've been making burgers with it.
Oh, so yes. I have one of those too. It's amazing.
I was excited to use that. Yeah. What about you?
My favorite Christmas gift. Well, this is gonna be a funny story. So I got this Patagonia beanie for my mom, and it's pretty cool. And I literally wore it for 4 straight days. And we were on a trip in Green Bay for Platteville basketball, and I ended up losing it in the hotel. So I had my favorite Christmas gift for like 4 days.
That's terrible.
I know. Oh well. Can't attach to the feeling of the beanie. I'm over it. Oh. You got a question?
So I know your opinions on New Year's resolutions, right? And if you had one, what would your New Year's resolution be?
If I had to make a New Year's resolution, it would probably be to meditate more consistently, because even I know how important meditation is, and it's still hard for me to get myself to do it sometimes. Mm-hmm. So that would definitely be mine. What about you?
So the thing I've been thinking about the most lately is finding a morning routine that works for me. And I've been struggling with because I've had such weird hours with everything. I've been going to bed at different times. I've been waking up at different times. So I'm kind of trying to get into a mode where I can wake up at the same time and do the same thing every morning. I think that's, that'll help me get my day started a lot better. So that'd probably be my main goal right now.
I was going to say to anyone listening that wants to work on their morning routine like Aaron, the biggest piece of that is going to bed at the same time every night, because it's impossible to get into a morning routine if you're waking up at different times. And obviously you want to get 8 hours of sleep if you can. But that would be my advice.
That's the thing, is it starts at night, and that's what I've been trying to learn a little bit more about morning routines and what I should be doing. And it definitely starts at night. So
yes, for sure. Getting a good night's rest.
I guess my other one, if I had to pick one more, it'd be to read more too.
That's a good one. I mean, I still read, but not as much as I did when I was not in school.
Yeah. I got some good books for Christmas, so I'm excited I can start
reading. What books did you get?
So my dad got me this book called The Alchemist.
I've read that. It's very good.
Okay. My dad got me that. He got that for my whole family because he wanted all of us to read it.
Really?
And he hasn't told me about it or anything, so I don't know what that's about.
So that one's, you kind of actually have to find your own meaning, because it's a legit story. It's not like a life book that explains things to you, but the lessons that the story tells is why it's such a good book. But that's legit one of the highest rated life books there is.
Yeah, I'm excited to read that one. And then I've got my mom got me the book 4 Hour Work Week, which
oh my gosh, Aaron, that is one of my favorite books of all time.
Yeah,
you should. A lot of the stuff we do at CTG is from that book.
So what order should I read those in? What do you think I should read first?
I mean, probably 4 Hour Work Week would apply to you right now, because I know you want to work on time management.
Yeah.
that's all what the 4-hour work week is. Basically how to maximize yourself as productivity and time manage. And then I would read The Alchemist.
All right.
But seriously, that was I got that for Christmas last year and I read it in like 2 days.
But the 4-hour work week?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, gatekeepers. Well, you got a little extra time with me and Coach Aaron talking about books. Just remember, gatekeepers, that probably one of the biggest things you're struggling with without even knowing it in basketball is detaching from other people's opinions. And listening to this podcast, like we just said, use the 5 steps that we talked about to improve yourself in that area. And just know that you're not going to be perfect. It's going to be something that's very hard to master and something me and Aaron still work on today, but just to keep slowly grow over time. Remember, we're not going to make huge jumps right away. Thanks for listening, gatekeepers. I'm Coach Jack. This is Coach Aaron. We're out, baby. Peace. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of Off the Court. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, please don't forget to leave reviews if you haven't yet. This helps us with engagement and helps us rank higher to make an influence on more basketball lives. I also strongly encourage you guys to check out our free ebook download that's 25 pages long, How to Unlock the Mental Side of the Game. I was a player that was constantly grinding and constantly working, and it was really hard for me not to see results from the amount of work I was putting in. But this ebook that I wrote dives exactly into those types of questions. I was completely ignoring the most important part of basketball, which is the mental side of the game. So the 25-page ebook that I wrote is for you guys to give yourselves a leg up on your competition and almost like a secret weapon. I call it the basketball cheat code. Also, check out our website, ctghoops.com. On there, we got tons of programs that you guys can download to make yourselves a better basketball player. We have the CTG Productivity Notebook, helping you guys become addicted to productivity. Of course, in-person training. We are located now in multiple cities. And then we have the CTG blog, free education on becoming your best basketball self. Lastly, follow all our social media pages at CTG Hoops, where we post multiple times a day, trying to make you the best player and person that you can be. All the links for these are down in the description below. Thank you guys so much. Make sure you guys check out all the other episodes of Off the Court, and make sure you're ready for next week's episode. I'm Coach Jack. We out, baby. Peace.